I think most of us feel stuck. I hope I'm not alone in this. Most of my life, I've felt stuck. And also most of my life, I think I've been pulling off trying to pretend I'm not. Which actually only made it worse. I wrote this study because a few years ago, it went from something that was nagging and a little bit troubling to a full-out war. It had made me sick. All this inner stuff, this invisible stuff inside of me. And all that while, I think everybody thought I was fine. Most of my life, I have been trying to measure up. I wanted to be okay with everybody, and I don't know how that got so important to me, but it was. It was really, really important to me. And so, when I couldn't, which was most days, I just got really anxious. And I worried, as if worrying was going to help it. So much so that eventually I made myself sick. I wanted to please everybody around me more than I wanted to please God. And it put me in this place inside of this war, this tension. And yet, outside, I was smiling and leading and teaching and talking about God as if everything was okay. We've got to start with this safe place. We've got to start with this place of confidence that we can come into this study, into these groups of women, and actually bare our soul a little. And not for the sake of bearing our soul, but because there's life in that. There's freedom in that. There is. And we need to find God in those places. And as long as we're pretending and hiding, we're missing God. He can't touch that space. He could. See, I think a lot of us feel ashamed. We know we're messes, and so we try to cover it up. We try to pretend we're okay. And so we start with this safe place. We have to go start with forgiveness and grace. In Romans 5, God tells us that when we were still weak, He sent Christ to die for us. He sent Christ to die for the ungodly, the imperfect, the messes. We start there. We start with grace. We can walk up to each other and be imperfect. We can walk up to God and be imperfect because of what Jesus did on a cross. Because of 2,000 years ago when He died and said, this is for you, so that you won't have to die, that you believe in me. If you trust in me, I will forgive your sins. I will be the way that you come to God, that you come to each other imperfectly. And so we start there. We have to start there. But we don't walk in that grace. We don't embrace that. We're afraid. We think God wants a performance from us. We think He wants us to be perfect. And He says, I know you're not perfect. Walk in grace. Walk in the blood of Christ, that He has died for you and that you are forgiven. That's why we come together and we can openly say we're not perfect because we're forgiven. I was stuck for a long time, and I read a lot of books, and I processed it with a lot of friends. I talked about it with counselors, and all of those things to some degree helped. I learned more about myself and my issues, but I wasn't free. And I don't think I truly tasted God until I saw my sin. In Luke 8, when Jesus is on the planet, He's walking around and he's going to heal somebody, and all these people are pushed up against him. There's a crowd following him, and he's walking, and there's a woman in that crowd who's been bleeding for 12 years. She has been sick and hurting. And she thinks to herself, if I can just press up, if I can just touch Jesus, if I can just get close enough to touch him, I believe he can heal me. And so she pushes through this crowd to just touch his robe. And she does it. She gets close enough and she touches Jesus. And she's instantly healed. And Christ stops walking and says, who just touched me? And the woman says, it was me, and I'm healed. He said, it is because of your faith you are healed. If I could just push us up, if we could just somehow touch Jesus, if we could just taste him, see him, feel him, believe that he is real, if you could believe that he is real, that there is a God that spun this planet and put us here, if you could taste that, if you could taste God and feel him, I believe he could heal you. And we're not to heaven yet. It's not going to be perfect. We're not going to be perfectly all fixed after this. But in Psalms, he says, I will be the lifter of your head. He could lift our head, and we could see him and taste him and touch him. And then I think what will happen as he gets bigger, all these stuck places, all these places we struggle, they're going to get smaller. We're not going to get fixed. But I promise you, tasting and seeing God, finding Jesus will change everything.